turn that on. You can turn on your closed captioning. The best way to watch this is using a desktop. If you're trying to watch it on a mobile or an iPad, it's not probably the best quality. So it's better to have a desktop. If you're still struggling with that, or you're having, a hard time accessing the webinar, or you're struggling with any type of technology, we do have 2 people in the chat room. So they are doing chat support 1 and 2. Feel free to reach out to them for support. So the next slide, oh yes, one more thing to quickly cover. I also just wanted to mention, we have voicing interpreters. So if you're hearing or you would rather to have audio, we also have interpreters voicing. So make sure that you have your audio on for that feature. Next slide. So how to use Zoom. Again, we will have a speaker, and we'll also be having a PowerPoint being shown at the same time. So you'll actually see maybe a really thin line in the middle of the screen, and you can stretch on how, what size you would want both or each side of the screen. On the top right corner, you'll actually be able to click on View, and you can select the gallery view for the best webinar experience. The gallery view, plus using the stretching feature on the screen to resize both of the sides for your viewing enjoyment. Next slide. Again, let me emphasize that, if you need tech support, or you have general questions, non-related to the PowerPoint presentation, you'll be using the chat box. Now, if you have questions related specifically to the PowerPoint content, and you're wanting to ask us as the host, then you'll actually use the Q&A box. We will collect all of the Q&A questions, and we'll share those at the end of the presentation. And we'll be able to see those answers and be able to answer those for you live. So if you see a question that, oh yeah, I want the answer to that as well, you can actually upvote the question, and that will send it to the top of the list. The more that that question is voted on, the faster that it moves to the top of the list, and it would be a more of a priority question to be answered. And I also want to emphasize, you won't see the interpreters on screen. You'll only be able to hear the interpreters, and also the accessibility of the closed caption. Next slide. So once again, this is a webinar, that's about financial education, and it's hosted by CSD Learns. And we do this kind of like on a monthly feature, with also the sponsor from our wonderful partner of Wells Fargo Foundation. So thank you, Wells Fargo, for your support. Now, without further ado, we wanted to go ahead and introduce this month's host, Stephanie Summers. And she is a financial advisor based in Maryland. She's an expert. She's very knowledgeable about different topics that we'll be teaching or featuring this month. So we'll have Stephanie join us now and explain a little bit more about what to expect this month. Hey, hi. Thank you again for partnering up with us to host this event. This event will be every Tuesday, 11 a.m. to noon Eastern Standard Time. And we know we have 4 amazing and very relative topics that we'll be teaching. Is that right? Perfect. Yes. Okay, I won't take up any more of your time. I look forward to seeing your presentation. Thank you. Awesome. Thank you so much, Jazzy. Thank you. All right. As Jazzy mentioned, my name is Stephanie Summers. I'm a financial advisor with Kramer Wealth Management Services. It's a group in Fremont, Maryland here, or Frederick, Maryland. I apologize. So the topic today that we'll be presenting on is fraud and scams. So this is our series. So April 13th, on next Tuesday, we'll be discussing Social Security. The third week on April 20th, we'll be discussing Medicare. And the last week on April the 27th will be about retirement income. So those are the 4 topics that we'll be covering. Now for fraud and scams. So I know that maybe some of you have probably already experienced this before. So we want to take a poll. If you will, answer the poll for us and let us know what you know. If you've ever experienced any type of identity theft or fraud or scams, if you'll take a moment to answer this poll for us, please. So here are our results. We have 64% of people who have already experienced fraud, scams, or identity theft, and 36% have said no, that they've never experienced it. So thank you. Here's our next question. So the second poll that we have is, when was the last time that you checked your credit report? If you will, take a moment to answer this poll. All right, so here's our results. 57% of people say that they have checked their credit history in the last year. The next one is 20% say that it's been at least 3 years since they've checked their credit. 5+ years is 6% of our group. And then 17% of you have never checked your credit history. So yeah, thank you for doing that poll for us. Next slide. Then the other thing I wanted to discuss about is 3 key scams. What happens during, the rough times, if we're having, a tough time in our economy, is identity theft, tax scams, and coronavirus scams, which is happening right now. And it has been since probably the last year, for over a year now. So I will share how that you can identify these things and prevent becoming a victim of these scams. Next slide. Now, identity theft is typically who people that want to take someone's identity. They'll do a lot of guessing of passwords. They'll guess your security questions, or they may look to retrieve your security codes. They actually have an ability to be able to retrieve this information. It takes a little bit of time for them to get this information, but if you ever have this come up and you suspect that someone is trying to, get your information, watch that carefully. We'll explain a little bit more on how to prevent this from happening. Now, sharing personal data online, that's easily a way for them to do identity theft. Hackers are experts. They have a lot of different technology that can fit to be able to, retrieve information and get the information that they're looking for. So say, for example, you use a password for one account and you use the same password for all accounts. Try to avoid that, because once they have the password for one account, it can easily maybe able to be used to retrieve information from other accounts. So hackers They love people that use the same passwords because then they can oftentimes get a lot of information from several different websites. So how they will test it out is they'll try with one account and then they'll realize that, oh, okay, this account has the same password, and they test it out on several, even with bank information. Sometimes they'll test out the password. You may get a notification your bank account has been accessed and you're thinking, oh, well, I haven't done that lately. It's a sign and a warning. So what you need to do, we'll explain that next. So also another way that hackers access information is for your cell phones. So your cell phones have a SIM card that's inserted. That information can easily be transmitted to hackers. They can easily access that information. And how you prevent that is using a two-factor authentication. The two-factor authentication will use this summary, FCA. That can prevent someone hacking your information. If you get concerned and you're worried about what to do, don't panic. There are steps and things that you can do, how you can prevent this from happening next time. But hopefully it doesn't happen the first time for you all. Next slide. So how do you protect yourself? So it's important to keep a strong password. That's probably the most important thing. Don't keep it very simple, like spring being a very simple word. It needs to be something complicated. Use numbers, use characters, capital letters, lowercase letters. Some of them, you have to have a minimum number of characters for your password. And some of them, it really doesn't matter. It's important to, set up a strong password and then also set up a two-step authentication process. Meaning, say that you set up a password, and then next it will ask you for either another email address or sending you a text, a code to your email or a code to your text. And then so it will actually send a code to your text number. You'll retrieve the code and you'll type in the code to be able to access your account. And it'll identify you, knowing you are the correct person to access the account, and then that it's not a hacker trying to access your information.
So really think twice before you actually go into any website is what I would recommend. Verifying that it is an authentic website, that it's not just some random unauthentic website. You don't want to go ahead and click on that if you're suspicious. As far as shopping online, for example, Amazon or different stores online, bookstores, there's so many places you can go online. Just make sure that it is a trusted website and validate that. Up at the top, the key thing you want to look for is checking for the HTTPS before the website. That means it's encrypted and protected. That means that it's hard for hackers to enter that. HTTPS is what you want to look for. Many times hackers are very good and skilled at being able to enter and access places. And so make sure that you know what you're using and that it's a valid website. Next. I would also say, as far as tax scams, there's a myriad of those that are happening currently. Phishing, the phone scams, identity theft, returning or tax return, prepare fraud. If they give you a larger amount of a return than you would expect, for example, it's a good indicator. And then also during this COVID time, COVID scams are quite hefty, unfortunately. People are having a hard time budgeting. People are losing or suspended from work. They're not able to pay for the basic necessities. It's been very challenging for many to learn how to or being able to live through this. And so the government has been sending the economic impact payment, EIP. And that's a key word that you want to make sure that you see. Economic impact payment. So far, there's been 3 distributed to individuals, 3 payments. The EIP, Economic Impact Payment, which means that it was, I believe the first one was last fall, if I'm not mistaken. And the second one, we just received the second EIP2, January, sometime in January, I would say. And then the third one was more recent. Some of you have received yours and some have not yet received your EIP, but it will say EIP3. And you'll see that often on the website or the federal website will comment EIP, say that. Sometimes you'll receive something that says stimulus check or payment check. Please avoid those because the government official wording for that is EIP, Economic Impact Payment. It won't say stimulus check. With the third EIP, many people have not received that. The IRS is quite backlogged. They're even more behind, unfortunately, with the 2019 refunds, tax refunds. The reason why is because the deadline for that was extended. If you remember, from April 15th, it was extended to July 15th as the tax deadline for individuals to send in their return. And that really impacted all the other things that have happened. So this time, this year, it's even pushed back to May from April. And so that is compounding the issue of delayed payments. If you have not received your third refund or EIP payment, then please be patient. They're working really hard. We're trying to make sure that they get the checks out to everybody. Next slide. Currently, there's many people that have been testing to see if they're COVID positive or negative with the virus. They might go to the doctor's office or go out to even a test site or test center. And that's pretty easy. They might even think taking a test at home would be great. But keep in mind, the home test kit for coronavirus is not approved by the FDA. If you want more information, you can use the FDA website, www.fda.gov, for more in-depth information about the home test kit or where you can get that, because that could be a fraudulent situation. You don't want people to scam you about a home kit for coronavirus. Even the county website or the state website, federal government websites, you can get more information, and that includes the CDC website. All of them are authentic locations to research and understand more information about vaccination. People who are calling via video phone or emailing, if they're from the CDC or other organizations like the WHO, World Health Organizations, they actually will never call you. That's not something that they do. To call each person in the United States, that won't happen. They will not ever call you. All the information is distributed through news, websites, or even letters, mail. That information to be distributed will be in different avenues. If they identify themselves as from CDC or the WHO organization or other reputable locations, then please make sure and ask them more in-depth questions to clarify if that's true or not, but most likely not. I would advise you to hang up. The organization, if it's an organization, then you need to make sure and check the website. Many hackers are very good at creating websites as well that look almost identical to the actual correct, authentic website. You would go in thinking that it is where you're supposed to be, but then there's an issue because it is a false website. So please be careful. Next slide. People asking for donations. That's actually a very common scam. At the end of the year, donating money is a very common way. You want to make sure the charity that you're donating to is an authentic, verified charity. Senior citizen organizations, DSA, NSD, those local senior citizen organizations that are all across the United States, to make sure that they are true charities to donate. If it's just a website address that you've never seen before, it doesn't look familiar to you, please be careful not to donate. It's very important not to wire any donation as well. You do not want to wire money from your account to that charity or any charity. They could easily hack your bank information. You don't want them to take your money. So please never wire money. Next slide. So let's talk about how you can prevent yourself from being scammed. There are different ways to make sure that those people that are asking for money are legitimate or they truly need help. You could get an email, for example, from a friend of yours, but the way that they word it seems weird. I need to borrow $4,000, it might say. And you know that person, it says it's from them, it's via email, but that's not normal maybe. Call your friend to verify or text your friend to verify. Did you send me an email that asked for money? They most likely will say no, and you can delete that email right away. Also, to check event revenue or income to make sure that's legitimate. They could create fake charities, nonprofits, and steal money for themselves. You may find out that that money or that fundraising was going to a youth program or senior citizens program, and you think it's authentic. Make sure that it is and that it isn't fraudulent. Make sure you know who the person is that you're donating to or that you're gifting to, that it's a trusted individual. Purchasing things through Craigslist, for example, or Facebook, if you use those places to purchase, because many people post to sell items. Maybe just make sure that you use cash only. Do not send a check. Never send wired money from your bank account. If you send a check for an item, they can definitely make sure that they can fool you. Excuse me, if they send you a check for purchasing an item, it can easily bounce because it's a scam and they've already protected that check or that money. Never wire money because they can steal your bank account information as well. Cash is not traceable, so you cannot trace cash. So make sure that cash is what is being used for the transaction. Businesses, government agencies, charities, make sure and call and discuss about the donation or the gifting of money. Ignore if it's something that you have not experienced, or they won't spend time calling to ask for money. There's too many people out there. If it's a legitimate business or organization, they would never call you. So that's a good indicator it's a scam or a fraudulent call. Be suspicious of any personal data that they're asking for or financial information. Keep that very confidential and do not give that away easily. I would also say that I'm emphasizing that because people out there are very good at scamming and taking advantage of senior citizens. Some of them have a cognitive memory issue and they could be vulnerable targets. So I just want to be very careful and make sure that you protect your information, especially with today's technology and everything online. It's so easy to scam and hack and steal information. A long time ago, that wasn't even possible. There was no phones, no internet, and it was much easier to keep your information private and not lose that control. And now with technology, it's much easier to lose that control. Also check your credit report. I would say from the 3 different agencies would be Smart Equity or Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. Those 3 are the main credit bureaus that you want to check, and they do provide that once for free during a certain time frame. It is free to get your credit report, your credit history, to check that to make sure that, for example, your monthly mortgage, your information, your payments per month, your credit cards will all be there. If you use a credit card, it will be on your credit report. Much or quite a bit of information and history will be there for you to review. If you notice that something's a little bit off, then I'll tell you how you manage that. If you do see something on your report that may not be yours, or there's a credit card that you never opened, for example, I would report that to the credit agency. One of the three, you do not have to report all three. One of the agencies will send the information to the other two agencies, and then investigate and find out that there was fraudulent use or identity theft of your maybe credit card or social security. Maybe, for example, like I mentioned, you never set up that credit card and it's on your credit report. They will track down that it was fraudulent. Maybe identity theft happens. You need to, in that case, let the Federal Commission, the FCC, know that you had identity theft happen to you. And the website, the identitytheft.gov website, that information, you'll go ahead and work with them and they will identify or investigate further. You might have charges that appear on your account and you notice maybe on your statement, a couple of them were yours and a couple of them were not. You would actually let the credit card company know in that situation that those 5 charges that you see are not from you. The credit card agency will or company will investigate that, remove those from your charges. You want to make sure that you are responsible and you do your due diligence for your own transactions, your own history, to follow any of your transactions to make sure no fraudulent activity has happened.
Now, if your email is hacked, how do you protect your email? What's very important is that you are constantly changing your passwords. Because an email, when you access it, they can actually forward your emails and distribute them anywhere to friends. They'll be like, oh, well, I got an email from a friend of mine. I mean, that person's never emailed me before. So you can reach out to them and say, hey, did you send out this email to everyone? And if they're like, no, then that means apparently they have to find out that someone's hacked my email. So now I need to change my password. It's happened to me before. My email password was hacked. So I had to change my password. Plus I added an extra step in the process. So I did 2 different steps for my email. And after that, it never happened again. So lesson learned. It's very important to make sure that when you forward an email, or if it was from you or not actually from you, make sure that you forward the correct email. So say that your email has actually been hacked. You're thinking, okay, what do I do now? So the first thing you want to do is change your password and then check your email settings. In settings, there are, like an automatic forward. There's an automatic forward option. You don't want that. You want to only forward emails that you would actually do yourself for forwarding. You don't want an automatic forward being under your settings. So make sure that you check that in your settings, just to make sure that, it's not doing anything automatically for you to prevent that from happening. Like I had mentioned previously in the slide, some emails have their own specific configurations. So you have to check this and check that, make sure everything's a match as far as what you want for the email. And then from then on, it should prevent it from happening again. And also, I wanted to add, a lot of people have tons of different, passwords for different websites, for different information. Like for me, for my work, for my job, I have a lot of, different websites, tons of websites that I use. Have I memorized all those passwords? No, I have not. So what do? Previously, I used to use a spreadsheet, an Excel spreadsheet, and I had them all listed out, the name of the website, just columns for the website address, the link to it, the username, and the password. I had a huge spreadsheet. I did that before. Paper can easily be used to access any of your information. So it's easily a paper trail. So now I use a software. So the software that I use is called Dashlane, and it's actually an app that I use. I create, my entire list there for different usernames, passwords, and so forth. And I've only memorized one password, and that's it. The only one that I have to know is the master password in order to access the app, and that's it. So when I go into the app, I can click open the website, and it will actually link me to the website and give me the information. So you can use this app from your phone, and you can create a password app from your phone using it. I mean, there's a lot of different apps. There's a lot of different options. You just have to do a little bit of research to figure out what app, fits you the best and what you're comfortable with. Instead of having them down on a piece of paper, that information gets lost or, someone finds it. Be very careful. I encourage you, if you have a piece of paper with all that information, you need to protect it. It's very critical that you protect that information and not let anyone access it. Okay, next slide. Okay, so it's time for a Q&A. Please feel free to send out your questions, and I will actually provide you with the question and we'll answer it as well. The first question that I'm seeing is, please explain about annuity do's and don'ts. That's not one of our topics for today, up for discussion. So we'll actually save that for another time. That's actually our 4th session that we have scheduled. Let's see what's next. Okay, so the next question is the problem with so many different passwords is that it's difficult to remember each password and it's hard to keep track of them. For example, like I had just mentioned to everyone, so either you can create, a spreadsheet, yes, and you can have that information there, but you hide that piece of paper. Or I suggest that you set up some type of app on your phone or a website, enter all of the information there and create one master password to access all the different websites and usernames. You only have to memorize one password and that's it in order to access all of your information. Next is, the next question is, what is phishing? Okay, so phishing is when someone tries to scam you saying, oh, well, I'm from an organization, the CDC, or I'm from WHO. And so they're fooling you, they're legitimately not from any type of organization. They're trying to, fool you with information, saying that I'm with so-and-so, and they're trying to collect data for CDC. The CDC always collects data. They will never call you to gather that information. They get data from doctors' offices, from different state and local facilities and health departments. That's where they exchange their information. Next question. Okay, so what do I do if I know someone who may have been a victim of a scam? What do I do, or how do I help them? That's a very good question. If you feel that, oh gosh, they're possibly a victim of a scam, alert them, let them know, and maybe they will be resistant. And they're like, oh no, I'm not. And I mean, you know what? You did your part. You warned them. For example, email forwarding. That happened to me actually once. And I didn't forward the email, but a person said, hey, they reached out and they said, are you a victim of a scam? Because it looks like I got a forwarded email by you. And I was like, no, I didn't do that. So they let me know, which I'm glad that they let me know. So I had to go ahead and change my password for my account suffering from any more damage or any further damage. And for example, if you have a Gmail can actually just, take your whole entire email account from you. if it's been hacked, and you will lose all of your email history. So that can happen. So if someone forwards you or warns you that this is happening, let them help you. Let them help you sort that out. The next question, can we check our credit report using a bank account? So if your bank provides a free credit report, then yes. However, most of the time, people typically just go to Equifax, Experian, or TransUnion. Those are the three, those are the key names. They will always have the information about your credit history with those three bureaus. The next question is, can hackers be punished? Yes, they can. Let me share another piece of information with you. So there are some companies, some firms, say for example, Google, Apple, they actually do hire hackers. Why? Because they want to protect their systems from those individuals that will actually, be able to hack into their accounts. Those hackers, they can say that they're a good hacker, they're an authentic hacker, but they'll be able to evaluate their own system and see how well they can protect it. Then there are bad hackers. They are the types of individuals that if they get caught, which is very hard to catch them, but they can be punished, yes. Next question, is a strong password automatically provided acceptable? That's a good question. If it's an automatic password that's assigned, I've never had that experience where a password was automatically assigned to me. So the next question, is it safe to use Dropbox for passwords or sensitive information? That's something that you would maybe have to look into. I'm not familiar with Dropbox. If it's something that's secure enough to put your password information into, I'm not really aware of that information. So next, which settings for auto forwarding? The person's asking that question because they're not very, they're not an expert when it comes to technology, which is fine. So if I'm using Gmail, for example, and it has, there's a settings feature, some kind of look like a wheel, a round wheel, like a gear. If you click on that, in there, you will actually look for auto forwarding information. Those are the key terms. So that's kind of what you would need to identify, and you have to figure out what you can do. Maybe ask a friend or someone that you trust, that's experienced with that type of thing to help you out with that. Or go to Google and Google the information, and you may be able to find like a tutorial or something to show you how to do it. The next one is, how often should I check my credit report? So I guess it really depends. Maybe once a year. There's actually a free credit report that you can do, and you can check it once a year. Some people do it every 3 years. So it just really kind of depends on if you use, a mortgage, or if you have a credit card that you use pretty often. If you have several accounts that you use, on a daily basis, it may be something you want to check more often. So I'd mentioned scams through the phone and through email. What about Facebook? Is it common for hackers to be able on Facebook? Typically, what do they do, and what should we look for on Facebook is the question. Yes, so some people have their accounts hacked. I use Facebook very little, but I did change my password before. But my account had never been hacked. Haven't experienced that, but I do know some individuals have experienced their accounts being hacked on Facebook. And what you need to do is maybe just check Facebook's privacy settings. Look into that. They do have privacy settings on Facebook. I recommend checking that out. If you kind of feel like that, I need to go ahead and change my password, maybe that's an option as well. Explain more about authentication is the next question. Okay. So emails typically have what we call a two-factor authentication, meaning there is a second or third step in the process in order to secure your email. So you go in with your username and your password, you sign in, which is fine. But to prevent someone else from using your username and password, there is a second step. Okay, so for example, say you're using one laptop and you've been using it for the longest time, and you easily get into your email all the time, and all of a sudden you go to another laptop and you've never used this laptop before to sign into your account. It may say, hey, because it can read your IP address, the computer, it's computer language. They can actually read it. And it says, oh, well, Stephanie has never used this laptop before for this email. So what it does is says, it's like a check-in, and it says, hey, it's making sure that I'm the right person accessing the information. So it will ask me for a second number or a second email. So I can put in my text number and it will send me a code to my phone. Once I enter the code into the screen, then it will allow me to access my email. So that's very critical if you use 2 or 3 different devices in order to access your information. For example, I work from home and I use my laptop. So then I may go to the office and there I may use my work computer, and say I haven't used it in probably 6 months. So it'll say, hey, well, who are you and who is this? Because, I haven't used that device in a while. So it will ask me for a code and I have to enter the code. Now, some people use what's called Google Authentication. It's actually an app that you can download from your phone. So the code that I use to get into my email, so say, for example, the system doesn't recognize me, I enter in the app, and the app has a code that's ready. So then I will give them the code, and they recognize that it's me, it's my identity, and they will let me in the email.
Okay, the next question is, when you change your password, you basically are giving a strong password. Should I accept it saying strong, or should I make a different one? So oftentimes when they give you a password, it's normally temporary. It'll expire within 24 hours. That's typically what happens when they assign you a temporary password. You go in with that password, you immediately change it to a new password, a stronger password immediately. If they give you a password, it's always going to be temporary. Within sometimes 10 minutes, sometimes a little bit longer, it will expire. So you'll have to change it. Oh, this next question is very good as well. Okay, it says, as far as giving a special paper or list of passwords, because senior citizens will often forget, so maybe give that to a child, one of your children. You can discuss that with your family, definitely. If, for example, you do create a spreadsheet, like I mentioned, it is on paper form, or you create something online through an online security password system. It could be that one password, like I mentioned to you, the main password to access that. You can give that to a child, one password to access all of them within that app, but you don't have to have a long list to give to your children. That might be a little bit easier. There could be different ways on how you handle and share that information. I do think it's important to share that information with your child or children, whomever in your family you trust, to have that information. Let's see, the next question here says, using a Discover card at Walmart, for example, this person had this experience recently. They used their card at Walmart. A few months later, there was somebody else had used the Discover card to purchase an iPad. It was not her that purchased the iPad. So Discover actually called the owner of the credit card to ask if they purchased the iPad, and the person said that they did not purchase the iPad. So how did that person steal their card? That's the question. It really depends on the store, to be honest with you. There's a lot of reduction in this happening, but some stores still have that paper format, or the running the credit card through that machine. And so that basically, that has your credit card number and transposed into it. The system could take that, a hacker, I should say, could take it from their system that they now have in their system at that store and be able to read that credit card number. And hackers are very good at what they do. And unfortunately, they know how to figure that out. It's really great that Discover had called you and let you know that somebody did that and identified that fraud and sent you a new card. Okay, so it seems like there's no further questions on the Q&A box. So I just wanted to thank each and every one of you for your time today, participating in this webinar. Next week, just to remind you, I will be talking about Social Security. I look forward to seeing all of you next week. And oh, I apologize. I believe there's one more slide to review. CSD, your next slide. Yes, perfect. So CSD, the group from CSD would like to check in with your experience on Zoom with this workshop. If you don't mind answering that question, that would be great. So I'm not sure if the results are going to come up. Oh, there we go. Okay, let's see what the results are. Oh, 97% said great. Awesome. It looks like 1%, 3% said so. If you do have any questions or concerns, please feel free to contact CSD for any of your concerns or complaints that you may have. The email address is learns@csd.org. So again, that's learns@csd.org. Great. All right, so the next slide, please. Awesome. See you all next week, next Tuesday at 11 a.m., April 13th. We're going to be talking about Social Security. Wonderful. Take care. Thank you so much for joining us.